For the past few years, the people building AI have told us their data centers were coming. Whether we liked it or not, we were told they were inevitable and necessary, and that without them, we would lose to China. The people who would live beside these things were simply told to step aside, but they pushed back. They packed town halls and council meetings and made themselves impossible to ignore. And slowly, the projects that were supposed to be unstoppable began to stall. In the first week of June 2026, one of the loudest men in this industry showed everyone just how well that pressure works. At first, he fought it. He mocked the people lined up against him and swore he would never back down. Days later, the same man quietly signed away half of what he had promised. His name is Kevin O'Leary, and to understand why he folded, you have to understand what he was really selling. O'Leary runs a set of data center ventures under the banner O'Leary Digital. The flagship is a project he calls Wonder Valley, which is a $70 billion campus in Alberta, Canada, that he announced in December 2024. At an industry conference a few months later, he called it the single largest AI compute data center park on Earth. OI's strategy is to design these campuses on spec, then go find a tenant to fill them. In plain language, he announces an enormous project first, and then looks for someone to actually use it. So when Ori stands in front of a camera and calls something the largest on Earth, that is not a builder describing a building, that is a salesman talking to the people he needs money from. The size is the product. The bigger the number, the better the pitch. Keep that in mind because every grand claim you are about to hear was a number designed to move capital. Then in February 2026, he announced a second data center in Box Elder County, Utah. The plan was for up to 9 gigawatts of power to run the AI servers across 40,000 acres on Fox and Friends. That same month, he turned it into a matter of national survival. The challenge we have against the Chinese is they're building 10x the power we are. We've been stalled out. We've had pairing permitting problems across the country. We need to compete with China. We need AI compute power. And so where do you put that and put that in data centers? The opposition in Utah was not quiet. Nearly 4,000 residents filed formal water rights protests with the state. They were worried about the Great Salt Lake, which is already shrinking, and about a project that wanted to draw water from one of its tributaries. On May 4th, 2026, the Box Elder County Commissioners approved the 9-gigawatt project, voting unanimously even as people protested in the room. On May 7th, just 3 days later, the project's water rights application from that Great Salt Lake tributary was withdrawn. On May 29th, the governor of Utah signed an executive order directing state agencies to prioritize the Great Salt Lake along with air and water quality and public input in data center decisions. The pressure was building and it was working. So O'Leary went looking for someone to blame. Starting in a Fox News interview on May 10th, O'Leary did not engage with a single concern his neighbors raised. Instead, he claimed the people fighting his project were funded by Chinese dark money. He claimed only China would want to stop America from building AI compute and said on social media that more than 90% of the protesters were paid and bussed in. The Salt Lake Tribune disputed it. The 2 local women behind the opposition mocked it, saying that if they were Chinese operatives, they would be the worst operatives in the entire world. Thousands of his own potential neighbors raised real questions about their water and their air, and a billionaire from out of state told them they were foreign agents. On June 1st, the president of the Utah Senate sent O'Leary a public letter demanding to cut the project by 75%. O'Leary's first reaction was pure defiance. Speaking to the Salt Lake Tribune, he said he assumed the number had to be a typo. He called the demand outrageous. And then he said, quote, "I'm not walking away. It's not who I am. I don't work that way." He compared the cut to selling someone a house and then letting them live only in the upstairs toilet. 2 days later, on June 3rd, O'Leary told NBC News a different story. The man who would not walk away now said he had no choice but to shrink it. Then on June 4th, he signed the letter. He agreed to remove 19,000 acres around the Locomotive Springs waterfall management area. He agreed to give up another 620-acre parcel. He agreed to dedicate the excess water to the Great Salt Lake. He agreed to an independent scientific review of the facility's heat output. And he agreed to build a public website so residents could track the permitting. Now, O'Leary wants you to believe he did not really lose, but the way he spun it is more revealing than the loss itself. His team argued that the 40,000 acres always included only about 10,000 acres of actual construction. In other words, after getting caught, they claimed most of what they gave up was empty land they never planned to build on anyway. Think about what that defense actually admits. Either the 40,000 acre figure was real, in which case he just surrendered half his project, or the 40,000-acre figure was inflated from the start, in which case the number he sold to the public and to investors was padded. There is no version of that story where O'Leary comes out honest. He either lost big or he was exaggerating big. And while O'Leary was busy in Utah, his original Wonder Valley in Alberta was quietly going nowhere. More than a year after that grand announcement, his company still had not finalized the purchase of the land. It had not applied for the key provincial permits. It had not finished consultation with Indigenous nations. The executive director of the industrial zone said that there were no real timelines, that the company was still working on the concept design and still looking for interest. The construction start, originally planned for 2026, has slipped to roughly the end of 2028, later than the date the first phase was supposed to already be running. And still, no major customer has signed on to actually use it. The president of Microsoft Canada said the project isn't really in its thinking and that they were not part of the discussions. Meanwhile, the rural municipality hosting the project was left responsible for securing the water the data center would need to operate. This is a community of fewer than 9,000 people in a drought-hit region that had already spent more than $70 million of public money on roads and infrastructure for land O'Leary had not even bought. The pattern of people pushing back and projects dying is now measurable. According to tracking by Heatmap News, the number of data center projects canned after local opposition rose from 2 in 2023 to 25 in 2025. According to Data Center Watch, more than $60 billion of projects have been blocked or delayed by public opposition. In Tucson, Arizona, an Amazon-linked data center called Project Blue was rejected by the city council after roughly 1,000 people turned out against it. In the Netherlands, a Meta data center in Zwolle was permanently canceled after the Senate and a local party blocked the land sale. In Chile, public outrage over water use forced Google to redesign a data center to use air cooling. In Memphis, Tennessee, legal pressure from environmental lawyers and the NAACP forced Elon Musk's xAI to pull out unpermitted equipment and eventually face a federal lawsuit. The pushback is reaching lawmakers too. On June 4, 2026, the same day Ori signed his letter, New York State passed a one-year moratorium on new data centers. Illinois and Ohio paused the tax breaks they had been offering data center developers, and dozens of towns across the country passed moratoriums of their own. The industry sold as a story of inevitability. Resistance was pointless, they said, but the record tells a different story. Project after project has been scaled back, abandoned, or scrapped because the people nearby refused to stay quiet.